everybody. Welcome to this PLC where we're going to be talking about supporting youth mental health today. Next slide. So this PLC is in collaboration with Free Your Feels, GSAN, Vox ATL, and Youth Voice Matters, and we are going to be your facilitators for today. Next slide. We just want to take a moment, even wherever you are listening to this recording, to ground yourself as always before we get into this work that is very much needed in our communities. So let's take a minute to take a few deep breaths. So deep breath in on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it at the top. And a deep breath out. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for having that grounding moment with me. Next, we're going to do a mood meter. So a check-in as you watch this recording. Where are you at right now? Where are your feelings? Is it more on the right side where you're feeling more positively? Are you more on the left side where you have a bit of anxiousness? And then check your energy levels. Let's see if we can get yourself some more to the right and more up on this mood meter today. And if you're not, I hope you're okay and we can support each other in the Padlet if you're needing a little bit of uplifting. Next slide. Okay, a little bit about what we're going to talk about today is we're really going to be getting into what the youth have to say about what they need to support their mental health, because you can be trying to help youth, but you need to hear from them in order to do that. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually implement things in place to support young people in their mental health. Next slide. And our objectives today is to continue building community. Since we could not be here in person, what that could look like is, again, supporting each other on the Padlet, and then talk more about Free Your Feels, and then we'll also continue to model youth-adult facilitation. Next slide. And then I want to give a reminder about group agreements because they're truly something we need to hold with each other, even if we're meeting asynchronously, right? So just a reminder of some of the group agreements: to have an open mind, say the thing or ask the question, and uplift the wisdom in the room is what I think is going to be the ones most important. But I acknowledge that I can't hear from you guys through a recording which group agreements that you would want to uplift. So have one that you're thinking, have one that you're holding in your heart, and keep that with you as you watch this recording. And I will pass it to Maria.
Thank you. So think about these two questions in the top of your head: what's working and what's challenging. We're going to come back to this, but first we are going to hear directly from young people. You're part of a learning community focused on youth mental health, and that wouldn't be as fruitful or impactful if we didn't work alongside young people and hear directly from them. So first, we're going to watch a video. It's less than 5 minutes, so turn your sound up and get in a quiet place, and hope you enjoy hearing directly from this young person.
My name's Adrian Pacheco. I'm in 12th grade.
I'm Julia. I'm in 12th grade.
I feel it's important because like if you're overstressed, you can do things to yourself, and like if you're overstressed, or your mental health is bad, like every day you go through life, it's gonna feel terrible.
I think it's definitely important because like school can be hard. So if all you focus on is school, then that will be bad for your mental health. So you have to take time to take care of yourself.
I think taking care of mental health is really important, especially in a time when it's so vital to protect yourself from all of the toxic stuff on the internet. It's really important that you prioritize yourself and make sure that you're mentally healthy so you can do good and all the things you want to do and succeed in school and friendship. Yeah, I have. I am a perfectionist and I really feel the pressure of high school grades and doing enough extracurriculars, just being quote unquote good enough to get into colleges and get scholarships. Not only that, but when I first started high school, I probably had like the worst mental downturn I've experienced because it was just so much pressure and so much stuff kind of put on you really quickly.
Yeah, I mean like last year, like when I was working on my IO and like working on my IA like topic for history and everything, like all the IB stuff happens at the same time. It's definitely really stressful for me, and then that can take a toll on my mental health.
Sometimes if someone's a workload or I feel stressed and like I feel sad, but the answer is yes and no.
Probably all the big projects for IB, like all our IAs and stuff, because they take forever, and then you don't really do them in class, you do them outside of class, so I feel like I never got time.
Probably the workload. Just the workload or there's other things like social life. If you're not considered popular or like you're considered weird compared to the mass on Instagram, if you do one thing that for your Instagram, the entire school knows.
The most important aspect of school that affects our mental health is the grades, really. Just the grades and the constant pressure to succeed. There's always more assignments, there's always more tests, and there's always something you can improve. Some teachers won't even give 100s because they're like, nothing is perfect, and that really can impact your grade. And as somebody who can tie their self-worth to their grades a lot, that can be really hard. I would want there to be less pressure on there being grades and have there be more like things for effort and have there be different allowances for circumstances. A lot of assignments will be done very, very quickly and you will not have time to actually do them. And I think that focusing on that could really improve a lot of students' mental health.
I really miss during COVID in 7th grade when we would have Wednesdays as an asynchronous day. I feel like using that day to get work done in the middle of the week and not having to come in was really beneficial.
Maybe they have therapists at the school, or like more ways for students to have like access to therapy or something they need for their mental health.
Awesome. So before we watched this video, two questions came on the screen of what's working and what's challenging. So as you think about that in your programs, you heard directly from young people and you can take that into your reflection as well. So some of the things we heard were pressure to succeed, social life, social media, workload, and then some recommendations to meet those challenges, asynchronous time, access to mental health supports, less pressure on grades. So think about that, and we'll continue the conversation with two young people of our very own, and we'll correct these slides and the spelling there. But Michaela and Chiron, they are here to talk about their experience with Vox ATL and working alongside their peers, adults in their lives, all for mental health supports. So I will pass it over to Michaela and Chiron.
Slay. Hi.
Um, Hi again. I feel you guys already heard who I was, but again, my name is Michaela. My pronouns are she, her, and I started off as a youth facilitator, well, engaged in after school spaces as a Vox alumni, now alumni, and I've continued my journey of being interested in uplifting young people and supporting young people as a youth engagement specialist now with Youth Voice Matters.
Yep. Hi. I am Chiron. I'm 23. My pronouns are he, they. And similarly, I also started at Vox ATO in the after school program. Yeah, always rocking my Vox merch. And I am also now youth engagement specialist alongside Michaela, which has been some really cool work that we are doing. But the way that I think I really got there and understanding some of that work was being at Vox and understanding what it meant to have a safe space as a young person in an after school program. And so knowing kind of what it is that I needed and being able to hear from my peers very openly and having the space to communicate what they also needed was really vital in one, making that jump, but also understanding what it means to serve in an after school space.
Yeah, for me, and I know Chiron, we started at different times at Vox, but I actually started Vox virtually in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. And if you really knew me, it's a common thing we say working with young people as we do community builders. But if you really knew me, you would know that 2020 was a really rough year for me, way outside the scope of the pandemic. It was actually the day we went into quarantine was the day that my papa died. And I had a really, really close relationship with him. So for a long time, in the midst of not only being isolated, I felt isolated in my grief. And I didn't really know what to do. I kind of went mute. And I'm a very sociable person, so that was rough for me. And then my mom told me about Vox, and I joined and I got on Zoom calls, and very similar to how we usually start off these PLCs with our opening moves and these community builders, that was what really started to get me out my shell. And I no longer felt as isolated as I was doing those community builders. And I truly did feel like I had a community, even if it was just within the confines of a Zoom screen and just seeing everybody's little different boxes. But Vox felt like a home for me. And I felt like I, for the first time, was having fun again. And it really gave me the space to, I don't know, have a sense of autonomy. And I don't know if you felt this too, Chiron, but like being able to have ownership and agency over what I wanted to publish, over how I wanted to use my voice, and just kind of feeling like I was a part of the team constantly and feeling like I was constantly supported and taken care of. It drastically improved my mental health so much. I believed in this process so much that I went on to want to be a youth facilitator to give that feeling to other young people myself. And so that resulted in me being here now as a youth engagement specialist. And it was truly having the help of my peers and then adult allies who I felt really cared about me that got me into a spot where my mental health was better enough for me to go on to become one of those near peers that were helping peers that were still in high school, and hopefully eventually to become an adult ally as well.
Yeah, I would say, well, I started Vox pre-pandemic. And so part of that for me was I had a really strong like base of people, one that I went to Vox with like at my school, but also building the connections with people, honestly, just kind of throughout the Metro Atlanta area. And those are still some friendships that I have and like cherish today, which was something that was really, really nice about having that kind of youth centered space. We were able to truly connect with one another and build genuine connections, definitely beyond that high school range, which is really cool. And I would say moving from like being in person to on Zoom, something that really maintained that sense of connectedness, again, like Michaela was saying, was those icebreakers, those building relationship activities that really kept us connected. But it was also the little things in between those like different Zoom meetings. It was sometimes there were game nights, sometimes there were different kinds of like birthday celebrations. There were these really small things that really made you feel like less alone. And I think that carried far beyond like from before the pandemic through it and then after it. I think those were little things that also really deepened that connection that we had to one another. Yeah.
Do you remember how they would ask like what your favorite snacks and treats were, and then they would send you a care basket to your home with all of those things? I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes. And stickers. Sometimes they ask what your favorite pin was. Yo, 10 out of 10. Love that as a stationary kind of nerd.
What are some of the things or attributes or characteristics that you thought the adults demonstrated or displayed that really helped you feel welcomed into Vox, helped you feel supported, especially through any challenges you may have had?
Okay. I guess something that really stood out or as a through line was that everybody was, how do I phrase this without it sounding like kind of woo woo? Everybody was very themselves. There was a lot of space for authentic self expression, and none of the adults ever seemed like they were cookie cutter or like they were one in the same or like they were pretending to be something that they weren't. They were all showing up as their authentic selves, which also like gave a lot of space and agency in that okayness that this is something you can do also, like that modeling by doing, that you can also show up as your authentic self. So even though they were all very different and they all brought very different things, they all showed up as themselves, which again, that authentic self-expression, which is one of those things that Vox is like really key on, just kind of like stood out. And it really helped me personally build some of that comfortability with like what I wanted or what I didn't want, and being direct in that same way. And also being comfortable holding that space for other people to be that direct without it feeling like what some people could consider disrespect, but it is just a genuine self-expression.
There's a common phrase that Rachel often tells us. Rachel's been our adult ally from our time at Vox and now in Youth Voice Matters. And she says that adult allies need to have the ability to sit on their hands. And that was something that was always visible from the very start of my time at Vox, is that the adults actually never spoke first. And I think that's the first time I've ever been in any space where the young people were the first people, like the young people were the ones welcoming me. And that made a big difference in how comfortable I felt in a short amount of time. I also feel like it was the adults truly did listen to me. Not only when it came to when we would plan something or co-create something. When we say co-create, the adults really took that seriously. And I felt like my opinion was valued. It truly did feel like a level playing field for me. And on top of that, the adults really took their time to get to know me, especially once we were back in person. But I feel like it's worthy to note that that also did happen on Zoom, where the adults got to know me, and could tell me things about myself, or they would remember things like what my favorite food was or what my favorite snack was, or they would keep it stocked at Box because they knew it was my favorite. So just kind of like the importance of being willing to not only listen to us, value our opinions, but on top of that, value us as people and truly take the time to get to know us. And it's further than just relationship building just to achieve the goal or the purpose. It's relationship building to truly be able to have an adult ally and youth friendly relationship.
Yeah, something you said that really shocked me when I was a teenager was like the actual deep listening that the adults would do. I remember being in conversation and Rachel had said something that like, or reminded me of something that I said earlier. And I was like, why are you listening to me? I was like, what? I was like, it was so odd and foreign to me to have somebody like an adult, like really listen to something that I had said before, maybe like a week or so before. And it was just kind of like whoa, like you can be a adult and you can listen to kids, like, and you can treat them as the people that they are. I was like, wow, mind blowing, life changing. Yeah.
I love that. Patrice, did you have any additional questions that you wanted to ask, or do you want us to shift to the reflection questions?
We can shift to the reflection questions. Thank you so much, Chiron and Michaela. And I've corrected your spelling of your name to Chiron.
Oh, well, I
Sorry
thought
about
it was
that.
so funny. Hey, I'm always looking to be a
Sorry.
little extra different.
Yeah, thank you, Patrice. Awesome. So, Chiron and Michaela, seriously, thank y'all for having that open conversation with us. I think y'all talking to each other really highlighted ways that your peers have supported you, how you felt comfortable in spaces where you were an adult or a youth leader and facilitator, and ways that your adult allies showed up for you in ways you felt most supported by them. So thank you again. And as an adult who has worked really closely with both Chiron and Michaela, their input, their work, their time, everything about them is invaluable. And I don't think any of this work could be done without partnering with young people and uplifting their voices and their expertise. So we're just glad that everyone in this PLC is part of that commitment. And thank you, Chiron and Michaela, again. So now that you've heard through the video and directly from Chiron and Michaela, we have a few reflection questions. Since this is asynchronous, if you're around some folks from the PLC, great, you can get in small groups. But if you're by yourself, then these are some questions that you can think about and really mull over as you plan your mental health support programming for young people. So the three reflection questions we have are listed on your screen here. The first is, what's one strategy your program can implement in the next 30 days? And then what support or resources do you need to do that? And finally, who can you collaborate with? And we would love if y'all are by yourselves or in small groups, whichever format you're doing these reflection questions in, share them on Padlet so that we can collaborate and hear or see what everyone has to say and think about your programming and ways that you hope to implement some youth-focused, youth-centered work. And I think at this point, I'm turning it over to Patrice.
Thanks so much, Maria. As we have had the opportunity to gather together back in September when we did our kickoff, and also had the pleasure of listening to Dimple and Chiron and Brittany facilitate mental health essentials for mentors for us. We also gathered together in October and did our first virtual session. And then now this session, we've heard a lot of strategies, some techniques, and some best practices or better practices for working with young people as we support their youth, as we support their mental health. There could be strategies that we've been employing that we have come to learn are not the best practice. So those are things that we may want to stop doing. And there are things that we may have been reaffirmed that we want to continue to practice because we found that it aligns with some of the free your field strategies or some of the other mental health supportive strategies that we've learned about. And then there could be things that we had not thought about that we learned from our colleagues that they're implementing well, or strategies in the Free Your Fields campaign that we learned in the newsletter that we received that we want to start implementing in our own programs and with the young people that we serve. I want you to just take a moment to continue to reflect and write one of those strategies down. Maybe something that you may want to stop doing, something that you may want to continue to do, or something that you may want to start doing. As always, your feedback is valuable to us, and we want to invite you to give us a little bit of reflection on how you felt about doing this asynchronously and also working on the Padlet. You can scan that QR code. And then finally, a deep thank you first to my colleagues who helped to develop this training. So you've seen Chiron and Michaela really take strong leads in our offerings to you all. They have been equal collaborators and colleagues with us as we develop this content for you. And then Maria Ramos, who helps to lead our Free Your Fields campaign, and Dimple, her closest colleague, as she works with our Voices team as well. Rachel Alderman Wallach, who you heard Michaela and Chiron reference so many times as a strong adult ally. Not only has she served with Vox ATL, she also leads Youth Voice Matters now. And then my colleague, Melissa Fisher, who's on the GSAN team in our Quality Supports Department, and myself, Patrice, have been your facilitators throughout this process. And finally, you all to dedicate your time to learn, and also some of your expertise to share with the rest of your colleagues. We hope that you continue to stay committed to supporting youth mental health, and that you use the Padlet as your resource library and continue to add to it, refresh it often, and share that with your teams and your programs. Thank you all so much.